Hello, this is Dr. Rebecca Wood, and I would like to welcome you to the Week 3 lecture, or as I like to call it, Deeper Diving into Research Writing. And this week we're going to talk about several topics, but the first one is going to be considering our audience again, and the introduction is crucial to a paper, and your audience consists of yourself, your instructor, and possibly your classmates, and it also could consist of a proofreading buddy or someone that you collaborate with and they give you suggestions, although they don't write your paper for you. And so once we have that audience's attention, how do we keep it? The introduction explains clearly what we are going to argue or discuss in the entire paper. We need that thesis statement. This is what I'm going to argue in the paper. If we promise to cover a subtopic in the introduction, we need to keep that promise in the paper. For example, if we promise 3 subtopics, we should have each of them in the paper in the order they are mentioned in the introduction. If we leave out a section that we don't have time or energy or research material for, then we need to leave out any mention of it in the introduction or conclusion. And the introduction is where we begin our relationship with our audience, and if we make a good impression, they are likely to want to stick with us. In fact, it would be great if we could write a paper that they would enjoy reading. And then also some more material about considering our audience in the introduction. What else does that introduction do? It does lay the foundation for the rest of the paper. It explains the main idea or thesis, and it also defines the terms of the argument. And so are we using any terms that need to be defined? If we use a dictionary, we should document which dictionary and under what article we found the material, and of course put quote marks around anything that's quoted. And then it happens that if you are possibly writing about the benefits of exercise and you're going to talk about different types of exercise, such as aerobic exercise, you should explain what that means early in the paper, in the introduction, and cite where you got the definition so that the audience understands what you're talking about. And you don't want to save that introductory material for the middle or the end of the paper, because that will really confuse the audience and they'll feel like they're starting the paper over again, or that they maybe didn't understand your argument at all in the first place. And then I'd also like to talk about utilizing an intellectual roadmap. So what comes after the introduction? A draft conclusion, and we talked about that some on the discussion board, and I know that it does seem like maybe kind of a wild idea, but we don't have to have a really elaborate conclusion written before we start writing the middle of our paper, but it's really nice to have an idea of where we're headed. So just a draft conclusion, and I always used to like to save something that was kind of dramatic for the end to tie things together and to get my readers' attention a little bit at the end of the paper too. So to plan ahead and save something good for the conclusion. So we should organize the research material into sections to correspond with the planned sections of our paper. And I try not to bore too many people with the details, but when I was writing my dissertation for my doctorate, I had about 100 books checked out of the library and all kinds of copies and papers and things, and I actually had real physical stacks of things. It was quite the mess as I was working on my paper or my dissertation, which is like a book, and it helped me keep things organized, and I completed it, which was in some ways felt to me a miracle. And so stacking our physical research material can help us stay organized. Your stacks, I hope, are not as big as the one on this slide, or placing your electronic research material into folders for each section can help you get and stay organized, because it's really hard to write an organized essay if your materials and your ideas are not organized. And then also continuing what comes after the introduction. We've talked about these probably for years in our lives about transitions. We want to have a smooth transition from the introduction to the middle of the paper, and then also to the conclusion, and then we want to smoothly transition from one paragraph to the next, from one sentence to the next. You don't want your reader to feel like there's a speed bump between any of the ideas or sentences or paragraphs in your paper. And so there's a lovely article on the Purdue OWL, which I have on the references page for this presentation, and I've cited it here, and this is a screenshot of some of the transitions that the Purdue OWL has in that web page. Also, we need to split up our project into pieces. I mean, we literally could just try to write a paper in one sitting, but that's very difficult to do well, and as we are writing larger projects, we'll find that really doesn't even work. So a writing project can be split into an infinite possible number of steps depending on its scope, its size, how much material needs to be in there. For example, a business letter can consist of several parts: a heading with the addresses of both parties, a greeting, a message itself, a closure note, a signature line, all in one page. So a business letter packs a lot into a small space, which interestingly enough makes a business letter somewhat challenging to write, because you can't write a 10-page business letter and expect the recipient to read all of it. And that goes also for emails, although now most people do use emails, but they're still based on the business letter idea. And then also, when we're splitting up our project into X number of pieces, a book or film project, as we get into larger projects, if we ever do that to ourselves, or perhaps we're working on a big project or a booklet or a book for work, it can be split into ever smaller units such as scenes and transitions, fade in, fade out. Outlines and storyboards can help keep a project organized from beginning to end, and then if we discover something while we're working, we can add something in, and you can re-outline even in the middle or the end of a writing process. And then please check out the link to the Purdue OWL's How to Outline article, and this is a screenshot of that an image from that article, and that's located in the week 3 lecture and resources folder. So please make sure every week to check out that folder and see everything that's in there. And then our final discussion topic, among others, this week is the recursive nature of learning and writing. And recursive means we do it over and over. And so I know when I was in school, I used to want to write my papers in one sitting and just finish it, or anything else I do, I like to just do it and be finished. But it really doesn't work so well that way. So I have my little trick question here. Once we've written our paper, once we're done, right? And the answer sadly is no. That's obviously a trick question. Now, I mean, if you're at the deadline and you just written something and it's the best you can do, turn it in. It may not have gone through all the rest of this process, but it's way better to turn it in. Maybe you would be able to revise it for this class if it's eligible, but I don't recommend that. I recommend saving time to do the steps we're talking about now, the going back over, rereading, adding, subtracting, editing, proofreading. And so there's always more to learn as we research our topic, and that's how people find themselves fascinated by their field of study and spend hours, days, and years learning more about it. And I have this lovely picture of the St. Louis Public Library, where I would love to spend lots of hours, days, and years learning about stuff. And so not all learning, of course, occurs in the library or classroom. So you might find that your field of study is aviation, or your field of study is organizational studies and working with people, but it's still the same thing, that you repeat it and you learn more and more as you do it, and find it more interesting. And also, within the parameters of our writing assignment, especially the deadline, because it's extremely important to turn in your papers at school on time, and also to get your projects at work done on time. And then the later stages of the writing process are all about making that not so great, we've all written them, or okay paper into the best paper it can be. It will never be perfect. That's something that I always have to struggle with myself, but perfection does not exist. We need to get them finished and go on to our next project. So as you are going through this recursive nature, especially at the end of a writing project of writing, read what you've written. Honestly, perhaps out loud. You can catch mistakes a lot easier when you read your work out loud. Use the Save As feature in Microsoft Word or other software to save a new version of your paper every time you do a major edit. Because let's say, for instance, you edit it and you think it's pretty good, and then you read it again and you say, oh, I really like what I had on that second page. Well, if you have not saved your paper again with a new file name, you may not ever be able to recover that material just from your memory. So I like to do a new version of my paper so that I can find it, what I may have left out. And then move ideas, sentences, and words where they really fit. Take out stuff that doesn't belong. Add more details where needed. Read it again. Double and triple check the documentation. Is that really a word you've ever used before? If not, document it. You may have to look through everything you've used as a source or take the related material out. I did actually have to do that with a little section in my dissertation. I was rereading it for about the 20th time, and I realized that there was a word in there I had never used in my life, and I could not find which source it was from, so I had to take out all the stuff related to that because I did not want to be doing any accidental plagiarism. And then have a trusted proofreading buddy look at your paper, do that one last proofreading pass, and then turn in your paper and relax like this lovely dog here for at least 5 minutes. So give yourself just a little bit of a pat on the back and a little breathing room before you work on your projects for your other classes or for this class or for whatever else you're doing. And this is my references list for the paper. Any images that were not from the Creative Commons and tagged as such, or images that I took as photos myself, are listed here, and these are from the Purdue Writing Lab. And so I hope you have a great week, and I'm looking forward to our discussions and reading your papers as we write them this term. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.